welcome everyone to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Porto. Joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
Oh man, glad to be back. It's on a different night, people, but vampire life is kind of kicking back on our ass, and we took a day, come back, more news, gonna be a good one.
Evan to suck, your sun kissed. Good stuff. So yeah, we did a 2 hour AW Double or Nothing review. It's in 3 parts, so fuck exporting that nonsense. But you can still listen to it live on Twitch. Well, not live, but on twitch.tv/ Wrestling Underground on Twitch. Check out all 3 parts. But we got some newsy stuff to talk about today. Some interesting stuff, some not so interesting stuff. We got to start off with some real rather upsetting and disappointing stuff. Firstly, we have to talk about Jake Atlas. He was a real big deal when he went to NXT. He got released, then he feigned retirement as one is wanting to do these days. But then he popped back up in AEW, and, he looked like he was going to have a run. Then he got hurt. Now he's apparently in some serious hot water with the police because he abused his partner. When was this? On the 23rd of May, so last week. According to PW Insider, on May 23rd in Orlando, Florida, police responded to a report of domestic violence at the home of Jake Atlas, a.k.a. Kenny Sanchez Martinez. According to PW Insider, the police claims that Atlas's longtime partner came to pick him up after drinking at Big Daddy's Roadhouse the previous night. When his partner arrived, Atlas apparently encouraged him to stay at the bar and drink with his friends. They stayed at the bar until Atlas wanted to go back to another friend's house to be intimate together. I don't know if that means with his partner or with the friend. I don't know. But he became upset when his partner was giving attention to someone else, sparking a verbal argument. Atlas became physically aggressive and charged the victim. His partner, which led to a nearby witness stepping in to prevent an attack. The witness convinced Atlas to return home and sleep it off since the former NXT star was clearly intoxicated. His partner left the apartment, but Atlas would follow, continuing to yell at him as he tried to leave. Another attempt at a physical attack occurred, and despite witnesses trying to step in, Atlas left the victim with a scratch on his forearm and a torn tank top. He was then separated from his partner once more and was convinced to go back into his car, but then demanded to re-enter the apartment to retrieve his dog. When he made it back to the apartment that he shared with the victim, Atlas refused to leave despite multiple opportunities. That was when the police were called. The report goes on to say that the officer gave Atlas many opportunities to give his side of the story, but he only wanted to speak badly about the victim. It was determined that Atlas was the aggressor and was then placed under arrest. Since the incident, Atlas signed a no-contact order that agrees to have no communication and stay at least 500 feet from the victim. He was released from jail on May 23rd and is set to appear before an Orange County court judge on June 28th, being officially arraigned at 7:30 a.m. that morning. Shortly after making his debut, Atlas... all right. So, apparently, the victim is a semi-well-known male pro wrestler on the indie scene. And he apparently wasn't out until this story, and he is now. So, one, I have to applaud. Who is this? This is from Robert Gunire of Wrestling Inc. by way of PW Insider. And they don't name the victim at all, so, I mean, I ain't going to be that dude. This is depressing, though, because Atlas is somebody who had all kinds of hype around him. Like with Anthony Bowens, he fit into a very unique mold, being a minority wrestler who's also gay, or I don't know if he's gay or bisexual. He has a boyfriend though, so that's something. And like with Anthony Bowens, I think he's bisexual, but he does have a boyfriend or fiance or husband. I don't know. These kids in their dating ways, man. Sometimes they get married, sometimes they just have threesomes. Oh, we'll get to that story. So this is depressing. Jake Atlas seemed like a good dude, and maybe he is a good dude. But when you're that drunk and you're that abusive, You're either a bad dude or you got an alcohol problem. Like, there is no in between. There is no, it was just a bad night. People without drinking problems, they don't have nights like this. Marcus, I've never had a night like that. I don't know if you've ever had a night like that. I'm sure shit hasn't.
No, I don't drink or really don't drink, don't smoke, don't really go out much. I usually, thankfully, have avoided a lot of this stuff. Um, but like you said, unless it's like 100% the alcohol, and also just article didn't necessarily speak to the historical context of their relationship. This may have just been something that was heightened by the alcohol.
Very, very true.
Because, like you said, I think the article referenced them, the partner potentially um, conversating with somebody else, and I guess it came off the Atlas as if it was some type of over flirtation or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that precipitated the, verbal lashing, if you will, which may have gotten physical. So, yeah, it sucks. Crazy part is a lot of these situations happen far more often than that's reported. Um, in this situation, it like you said, it does suck because if it is a fellow wrestler and they weren't out, and this is going around and now the wrestler's name is obviously mentioned, that's now it's completely out of their hands. So um, it sucks double in that regard. And obviously with Atlas, his job is going to be brought up because this is not really a time and situation where a lot of these companies are dealing with scenarios like this. It's not like Atlas is one of those names where people can afford to not lose. So um, we'll see. But these kind of situations always suck. But it is interesting that there are a lot of situations that happen like this when it is I guess same sex couples.
Mm-hmm.
It just for some reason you know uh, I guess the more heteronormative narratives are the ones that get the more shine. But it does happen a lot of times in that community as well. So
I know it's probably the wrong comparison to draw considering her current situation, but I'm pretty sure Brittany Griner got arrested for assaulting her wife. It may have been a mutual combative situation, but you're
yeah,
right. It does get kind of under glossed, if you will. I remember Hope Solo got arrested for beating up her nephew, and everyone's like, "Well, she was the victim," and because he was bigger than her, and it's like, well, she was the aggressor. He was the one with physical abrasions, and it's like, sometimes I just wonder, like, do we only care about domestic violence when it's a straight dude hitting a straight chick? Because, like, this is fucked up. Like, Jake Atlas is fucked up. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not saying he can't come back. Because, we had an entire conversation once about how Mike Tyson rejuvenated his life by accepting
yeah,
responsibility, going to treatment, getting himself on the good drugs, not the bad drugs, and becoming a completely different person. Like, Mike Tyson is just a dude who's enjoying his life and has remorse for his past crimes. And it's like, you can come back. So I don't want to sit here and say Jake Atlas will always be a scumbag, but for right now, Jake Atlas is a scumbag. But some people can't come back. Look at you, Riddle. Oh, we're going there. So this story's a little old. This happened the 26th. Granted, we didn't do a show the 23rd. It's like so technically this is still within our weekly wheelhouse. But I'm only finding out about this story fucking today. So, Matt Riddle has been accused by Candy Cartwright of sexual assault. There was a 17-year-old, I think he may not have been 17 when he told the story, but there was a 17-year-old boy who was engaged in a flirtatious conversation with Matt Riddle. His wife has gone out of her way to disparage Matt Riddle. And I think there was another incident. But Matt Riddle is sexually ambiguous, to be blunt about it. And that's fine. Like, if you want to go and do things with people who are of legal consenting age, like, I don't give a shit. But when you start going under that age range of legal, gross. So apparently this new chick, I'm not even going to name her because it's not going to do anyone any good. She basically said that Matt Riddle was having sex with men, women, Punishment Martinez. Damian Priest. Now the Damian Priest one was more of a threesome idea, but she did pretty much say that she's surprised that they're not together. So I don't know what that tells you. Maybe she did a train with both of them, and there was a real strong vibe between them. I don't know, but hey, like, maybe that's what makes Matt Riddle not be such a douchebag is that Punishment Martinez, Damian Priest, whichever one he is, he's one of those. So the thing that stood out, though, in all the accusations, it wasn't that he was a cheating scumbag. And listen, we make too much. We give too many allowances to cheaters. Cheating is a violent, emotionally damaged incident that genuinely gives people post-traumatic stress disorder. The amount of emotional abuse that goes towards being cheated on is severely discussed. So I do believe cheating is a form of abuse. If you don't, that's fine. You're a bad person. And I don't make those grandstands often, but I'm fucking making it tonight because it's like, fuck this. Secondly, this girl accuses Matt Riddle of not just cheating on her. And this is very important because some scumbags out there, like Bill Bahati, who's just the biggest scumbag in wrestling, not named Lauderdale, is trying to act like this is no big deal. But Matt Riddle is being accused of sleeping with multiple people, from men to women, ranging in ages all the way to 18 and up, all while doing it unprotected. So there are actually some states that consider that a form of abuse. It turns out if you're having sex with multiple people at the same time, all unprotected, that's fucked up. Especially if you're adding dudes to the equation. Listen, there ain't nothing wrong with the dude love. Or the Mick Foley for that matter. But there is a higher rate of STDs transmitted in the gay community than there is, shut up AJ Styles, than there is outside of it. And if you start crossing streams, so to speak, you're just going to up the risk factor. That's not an indictment. It's not a criticism. It's just facts. It's why safe sex is always imperative. It's why it's stated time again. You ever see those Truvada with PrEP? Marcus, do you realize who they target? It's not straight people.
Yeah,
Most of the people in the Truvada with PrEP are Black Americans because they have a higher rate of HIV for whatever reason. Trans folks and gay people. Those are the three highest risk factors or risk groups in the United States to get HIV.
And I may be wrong on this, but I feel like I either read or heard somebody talk about this. In certain places, if you get, like HIV, or if you have HIV or something like that, and you do that multiple partner thing, you can come under charges for like premeditated.
Yes.
Like something like that. You know
yes.
what I'm saying? So,
it's what the fuck is it? It's not It's not. I'm trying to think what it is. It's assault, I think. I don't think it's attempted murder, but in some states you could quantify that. So,
Yeah.
but like my point was like that Truvada with PrEP is targeting specific, groups because not targeting, but because they know
Yeah.
who has the higher risk factors.
yeah.
Matt Riddle's engaging with all those high risk factors, and he's not telling people about it. That makes it to me think that he's doing a lot more skeezy shit on the side. Now think about it. Like Candy Cartwright has accused him of sexually abusing him. This chick said that he's a monster who abuses people. And what else did she say? Shit, hang on. I can remember it. She said something to the effect like he's perverted. And again, we had, and I can't say for sure that the 17-year-old boy who accused Matt Riddle is being honest. I don't know him. But some random dude making an accusation doesn't seem to me like the most clout-chasing of moments to be had. Because, like, what's the value? Like after your 15 minutes, what is it? Like, I don't think people are that stupid. So do I think Matt Riddle's engaged in underage conversations with minors before about sexual activities? Yes, I do. Do I have any proof about that? No, I do not. I have one accusation that I remember, and that's it. But you start to see 3 accusations. His wife is not a big fan of him. Let's see if we can Google Matt Riddle wife. Miss Lisa Riddle. She filed for divorce after 11 years together. Let's see, is there... Lisa Riddle claims that Matt moved away from the family. Let's see, Lisa Riddle shares a heartfelt message. It's been exactly 1 month since the judge signed the paperwork and our divorce is finalized. The kids and I are enjoying our new adventure and are grateful for everyone that's been by our side the entire time. I kind of have to think about this for a second because I feel like it needs to be said. But if you're not living with your kids by your own choice, you're having unprotected sex with multitudes of people, you're risking your partners, and you're dating people who are slamming one another because apparently his new girlfriend, who I think may be trans, basically dogged his own ex-wife and mother of his children in some type of weird catty TikTok video. Or maybe it was an Instagram post. I don't know. Social medias are all the same. Fuck the terms. But this woman went after the mother of his children for no reason, basically saying it doesn't matter who had him first, it matters who has him now. And, like, I'm just like, this is the type of people you associate with? Like, you are who you associate with. Like, people need to know that. Matt Riddle's a giant-ass scumbag, which is no surprising why he was hanging out with Randy Orton, who himself is a giant-ass scumbag. The two clearly have a lot in common. So I'm sitting here flabbergasted that we have, again, yet another accusation. We have people like Bill Bahati sitting here saying, it's not that bad. People are just virgins. Yeah. Marcus, I don't think about pushing people downstairs all too often, but when I do, it's people like Bill Bahati that I push in my mind down a flight of infinite stairs into oblivion. Oh, I long for that day. This is a fucked up story that's going to be completely underswept until it eventually blows up in someone's face. Because I guarantee you, sometime, at some place, somewhere, somehow, someone's going to say, yeah, I got an STD from Matt Riddle. And you just hope it's something curable like gonorrhea. Because it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's not good. Gonorrhea actually sounds like it's not curable, but
It sounds like it's not, but it is. There's a lot of penicillin.
it's on the name alone. But yeah, it's I just always am on the side of caution anyway. And I know that dude that I showed you that tweet of talking about, rock star lifestyle, and it sucks that when people equate that level of purposeful recklessness on like financial status, because there's poor people out here doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's only compiled by the fact that it's his wife that's talking about him like that. Because who would know him better? So it's just one more piece of log on the fire. Ultimately.
Speaking of one more log on the fire, apparently Deshaun Watson has a 23rd lawsuit against him. And Cleveland is burning. Oh, Deshaun Watson's hanging out with Mia Khalifa, too, so that right there is the biggest indictment.
Jesus Christ. The most overrated porn star.
We don't know that, Marcus. We only ever view that stuff as research.
Yes, but when we had the conversation about just overrated people in life, she came up. But yeah, that's not good. Well, all his accusers, by the way, from all massage parlors, are just like some massage parlors, some women.
Not even massage parlors. These are masseuses that do
he called
in-home. Yes.
Oh, that's even worse.
Right? Like, all right, listen, you go to like a tug and pull or whatever they're called, and all right, listen, you're a freak. Look at you, Robert Kraft, you fucking deplorable douche. But like, you're both there for the same reason. These chicks are like, yeah, I showed up and he was naked and yanking on himself when I walked in the door, and I'm like, woo. That is the wrong way to start this encounter. And like people like again like with the Matt Riddle stuff, people like Deshaun Watson's like, oh well, they're just jealous or they have regret and it's like, man, Matt Riddle and Deshaun Watson are just the same type of dude who are always going to get passes because people are too afraid to say, I'm not a fan of you anymore. And I used to be a fan of Deshaun Watson. When he wasn't kicking the shit out of the Browns. But then after all these allegations came out, I was like, damn, like it's not even 23, it's 25. Two have just decided not to sue.
It's weird. It's weird because it's like, look at like how many times did he do that? Like he's like the one person got creeped out and didn't want to participate in whatever he was gesturing at, and he just kept calling people.
Man, and it was all like in the span of like 2 years too. So like there were some stories where he tried and they said no. There were some stories where he tried and they relented because he was so persistent, and there were other stories where he was grabbing on them without permission. So like there's varying degrees of this.
You hear other people talk about this, and then the situation come up where like it's like, obviously he's being targeted and taken down. Like I'm sitting there like, there's not a network of, I can't see like a network of home massage therapists going like,
Yeah.
okay guys, money's getting tight. We need to pick an athlete who's had somebody that kind of wanted like a special handy dandy lately that is got some deep pockets that we can knock off.
James Harden,
It's hilarious.
LeBron James,
Hardy's.
Hardy's, James Hardy's. By the way, Marcus, I do not want you to slander Hardy's. They are a fine burger establishment.
Oh no, I don't doubt that, and I appreciate burger establishments. They are necessary in the fast food collective.
Yeah, but this is not a cabal of masseuses looking to take down Deshaun Watson for shits and giggles.
And I get it. He's an athlete. He's a black athlete. He's a black quarterback. But it's like it just comes off like he just kept putting himself in a real stupid position because he thought he could get away with it. And it's like, dude, I know it's escort services that you could call. So either you would get off on putting these masseuses in these positions, or you just didn't have the good sense to be like, I obviously want to get off. Why don't I just hire a young lady to come who specializes in that service, pay them so it's an even deal.
Mm-hmm.
You get on. Like what?
Yeah, he tried paying the masseuses, but they're like, that wasn't the massage I signed up for. I will say this. When it comes to Deshaun Watson, I hope he burns in a fiery pit of hell right next to Matt Riddle. Candy Cartwright was right. And these dudes are scum. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. That's all I'm hoping for in life, is just for you to disappear. Two names I hope don't disappear, however. Let me change the photo. Are Naomi and Sasha. I love Naomi and Sasha, especially Sasha. Sasha makes me feel good. Every time she smiles, I'm just like, yeah, I know I'd have to wear a bulletproof vest in bed with her. Boy, it'd be worth it at least the first time.
That's hilarious. Yeah, they're both two special women for sure.
Yes, very talented too, extremely talented. Naomi is someone who I think has that Gail Kim factor, where if she ever actually goes to someplace who would use her correctly, could be legendary. Instead of being considered one of the more underrated talents in the WWE. And she's a former SmackDown champion. Not that matters anymore because they're getting rid of the brands, but allegedly. We'll see what that ends up happening. God damn it. I want to host this fucking cupcake right now. And I don't even know why that came into my mind, but I'm like, ugh,
So it's the perfect compliment, obviously in a negative way for your body, for that sun kissed.
right? I think that's why. Like I was sitting there and it was like a memory taste. Like something just kind of hit my tongue. I'm like, I want to host this cupcake. And like I'm trying to cut out sugar, so like I'm not gonna have one, but also like I know where they are. So we're gonna see if my willpower is Green Lantern worthy tonight. But speaking of willpower, Banks and Naomi decided to walk out on the WWE, and like with Naomi, I feel like she may have been not co-or, she's a grown woman, but I feel like there may have been some influence to do so. But also, if she's doing it, I feel like there's a validity to it. And while I love me some Sasha, I feel like Sasha walks out on everything. So I feel like this isn't exactly something to be shocked about, and I feel like she kind of, she overdoes it. So like, there's two different levels to this. Like, I respect that Naomi did it, but I'm not happy she did it. And then with Sasha, it's like, of course she walked out. It's her MO. She's, she's the progenitor to MJF. She's the reason MJF is walking out. So if you're mad at MJF, you gotta be mad at Sasha. And if you're mad at Sasha, you gotta be mad at MJF. I'm willing to give Naomi a break on this one though, because she's a genuine sweetheart and she doesn't ever rock the boat. So like, I feel like there's something else here. But Sasha doesn't get that same benefit of the doubt, not anymore. But if Sasha wants to talk about it, she can always come over. She can always try to convince me. So according to multiple reports, Banks and Naomi are being suspended without pay, although that may not be a reason to freeze the contracts, which the WWE are prone to do, hence Rey Mysterio, who has missed so much time due to knee injuries, he's currently under contract until he's 64, because the contract keeps getting rolled over. Now, I'm being a bit facetious, but they do roll the contracts over for the time missed. If Naomi and let's see, did I miss something? No. If Naomi and Banks' contracts aren't frozen, they're both expected to be free agents this summer. Former WWE writer Kazim Famuyidi, I'm so sorry, stated that Banks' deal was up soon and Naomi's was up this summer. He didn't say that, but also that her contract is up this summer as well. So that's very interesting. So the report concluded by stating several within the WWE originally didn't want to strip Banks and Naomi of their tag titles, but ultimately did so when it became apparent a solution couldn't be reached, and that there's no update on when a tournament to crown new champions could take place. It's noted by Brian Alvarez this morning that the tag title tournament wasn't mentioned at all on Raw. And throughout these 2 weeks, Banks and Naomi have remained silent, though Banks has been spotted in public, and Naomi removed mentions of WWE in her bio on Twitter. Meanwhile, WWE had another case of advertised match not going on as planned when Lacey Evans' return match didn't occur despite being promoted for a week. So that's WWE for you. Let's see, did I miss anything about this? I feel like I did. Okay, I did not. Marcus, are we going to see a resolution to this outside of them leaving the company? Or is leaving the company really the only thing left at this point?
I don't know, man. Certainly is a sticky wicket, as you said in the past. It's interesting because obviously we talked about everybody in my mom feels like they've put their 2 cents in on it now, but with you particularly, you had a point about just the way that they did it, not as opposed to them doing it anyway, because this company just has a way of playing in their talent's face. Much that I just think they've done it with them so many times, specifically Banks, when it comes to these tag titles, because I think that's just a sensitive subject with her anyway, because she and Baylor were the reasons why they campaigned to bring them back, and then when they put them on them, they misused and abused them to the point where like the first people that took them off them was
The Iconics.
yeah, the Iconics, which no shot at them, but they were a joke. So titles have never been taken seriously, and all her efforts have gone in vain. And yeah, they played in Sasha's face particularly long enough to allow her to go and be and involve herself in situations to realize that she don't necessarily need the company. And that's a place a lot of these talents never really get to, because I feel like even though they know they're far more further down the totem pole than Sasha Banks is. Like in their mind, like I said, they've gotten used to a certain lifestyle, certain thing, and not only are they used to eggshells, but they're used to, like I said, the life that they've been accustomed to based off that WWE salary, and a lot of them, just kind of they can go as long as they can without ducking them budget cuts at random, and they'll do it because they rather starve there than potentially thrive somewhere else. It's the thing about the when I talked about on the last show about certain women getting mad at other women who I guess give out their special cookie for free, and it'd be like, I'd rather cry in a Bugatti than in a Honda Civic or something.
I mean, yeah.
So that's kind of mentality. And I think they've literally, like I said, played in her and Naomi, and I think other people's face. I think it's only a matter of time before we see this with other people. But they played in the face for so long, it's just they're not taking it. And so it's not like they did anything brutal. People were like, oh my God, they went and gave John Laurinaitis the tag title. I'm like, I showed you a clip when Brock came back through the curtain. He threw the title at Vince.
Yeah.
He threw the title at Vince. We know Brock don't have any F's to give, so it's like, not the first time, this won't be the last.
No, it won't because the company is fucking poorly managed. I found it very. I had a I had to bite my tongue when you said I'd rather starve or I'd rather leave there than starve there or something to that effect that you said, because I thought to myself, like, none of
Yeah.
these people in this company are going to starve because they're all fucking eating catering. Starving, come on. So here's hoping that both ladies, find their way to a pleasant resolution.
Yeah.
While I don't agree with how they left, I'm not mad. It's an opinion. I don't like how they left, but I'm not sitting there going, Naomi and Sasha are ruining the business, because the business is inherently toxic as fuck. Like, pro wrestling podcasts are probably the most non-toxic form of pro wrestling. Because promoters fuck people over, wrestlers are destroying their bodies, fans are chanting terrible things at people constantly, and it's encouraged. Like, this is a toxic entertainment factor, man. Like, I'm telling you, what we do, we try to detoxify it. But like, at the end of the day, if Sasha and Naomi end up wanting to leave the company, that's their choice. Like, their reputations are going to be defined by how they respond to this incident or to this situation, I should say. And like with MJF, like I see him as somebody who you can't rely on anymore. And there's a part of me that feels that way about Sasha, and I'm worried that Naomi's going to fall into that same type of kind of mindset, because Sasha does this all the time. It's like, yeah, you expect this, but Naomi was a shocker, because you always, not to say that she was a good soldier in the sense that she just took whatever, but like I always felt with Naomi that she was always going to find a way to be diplomatic, even if she didn't get what she wanted. She could at least get it, something better than she had. So to see her walk out, I'm kind of torn, because it's like, was I wrong about that, or is things so bad in the company that even she decided that she was done? Because like, that's one of those, like, when Sting decides to swear, you're like, oh, or like when Marcus decides to swear, that's when you're like, oh.
I think it's one of those things too, and I think a lot of people don't take this into account when it comes to the women. Like, both of those young women are married,
Mm-hmm.
and we obviously seen Miranda's when did her thing, obviously Becky and whatnot. But for, I think, Naomi, and I think I've heard her talk about this in an interview, she's closer to that whole thing about having her own kids with Jay than not. So imagine potentially her or Sasha, the other women, putting off that uh, addition to life, which only um, ranks up the level of danger as they get older.
Mm-hmm.
Because they think like, okay, last year was absolute trash, but this year I'm gonna make my stride, and I'm gonna get somewhere, and I'm gonna have some forward momentum in this company with my character towards a title. And then you look by, and another year gone by, you're a year older, and you're no closer to being where you think you should be on the roster. and you're getting further away from the baby goal because the older you get, it's dangerous, and then it becomes some
Docile.
some bad math starting to happen, and then you got to sit down and start re-triggering. So when you get yo-yo like that about some titles that don't matter, those titles might matter less than the damn 24/7 title.
I mean,
So
the
imagine,
24/7 title has a champion currently, so you're not wrong.
imagine putting like your like serious goals of your personal life on hold for the damn women's tag straps. You know?
Yeah, and listen, she's 34. That's not ancient by any means in life. But when you talk about viability with pregnancy, like that window does shut. Not around 34 by any means. But at 34, you start contemplating, like, Jesus. Because I'm 35, and I'm thinking the same thing. But my clock doesn't end. Like, I have a clock to infinitum. Until I croak, I can make an offspring. Granted, the older you get, the more likely they are to have some deficiencies. But I can have a kid at 50 and still be a parent. At 50, most women have already entered menopause. So I get that. Like, that's a valid argument. She's been married for 8 years.
Yeah.
Like, there's gonna come a point when she decides if that's one of the things she wants, because I don't know. But if she
Yeah.
decides she wants to have her own kids, like, it's gonna be now or never. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Naomi back in the ring for 2 to 3 years if she does hit free agency and decides she wants to put her wrestling career on hold and start a family. So if that's what they want to do, like, more power to them. I think Sasha's what, 30?
Yeah, she's definitely younger than that. I think yeah, she's maybe 30. Yeah.
Let's see.
So
Sasha Banks. She's exactly 30.
30. Yep, exactly
So
30.
they might both want to do it. Sasha, might want to do more acting,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess is fine. She was basically a stoic, something or other on the Mandalorian. So, like, all right, if that's gonna propel you into stardom, go for it. I've seen wrestlers try before, and let's just say we've seen Triple H's biography on IMDb.
Yes. It's one of those things where, like, I think she takes it far more seriously than him, because for him, he's like, I've seen him in interviews, and it's like what I'm want to go study for or sit in the trailer and go over lines for hours. He was like, when that camera turns on, you either acting or you're not. I'm like, that's a way to look at it.
Have you seen my dogs? Have you tried the lobby?
It was like what he said about the dick. He was like, I was talking to him. What do you know about my dick, suck face? Like, oh.
Unlike most vampires, her fangs are in her vagina.
What's the other thing he did? Oh yeah, oh my arm, my arm. Then he put it back into place. Like, yeah, this is Emmy Award winning stuff
And we're not even talking about the chaperone yet.
at all. Oh man. So yeah.
So let's talk some talking about people. So all right, I just remembered something about this. So Sportskeeda, and they do all right content. The day CM Punk won the AEW World Title, Sportskeeda published an article. 5 reasons Roman Reigns' title reign is better than CM Punk's. I'm like, it's 18 hours old. Can you not? And so much of it was just bias, yes. Like, subjective, that's the word I was looking for. Except for one. It was like Roman's held the belt longer. Well, no shit. Roman's had a higher level of competition. As champion? Again, no shit. CM Punk's wrestled 0 people as champion. So, of course, Roman wins that. One of them was Roman's got better prospects in Hollywood, thanks to the WWE marketing machine. Yeah, that's technically accurate, but Roman Reigns has the charisma of a limping dog down the street with rabies. I don't want to see Roman Reigns act. I don't think anyone wants to see Roman Reigns act, besides maybe a select few people who are just curious in a morbid sense to see how well or not well he does. Because he was in that Hobbs and Jason Statham movie, or Calvin and Hobbes movie. Where
Yeah,
he had the
Hobbs and Shaw.
tiger and the rock or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, Hobbs and Shaw. Yeah.
And Roman Reigns was like a background dancer dude in that movie. He may have had a line. I don't know. I didn't see the movie.
Yeah, he got to had a couple lines and basically got to do some Samoan stuff, spear, ooh ah, that whole deal with his cousin. So that was cool.
So, he basically did the same shit he's been doing for the last 12 years. Oh, yeah, he's such a good actor. That's like me being short. I'm not getting any awards for being short. I've been doing that my whole life.
Well, thinking back to it, like talking about the reign of it all. Didn't he win that title back when they were still doing the Dome?
Yep. And I'm pretty sure.
Like, like Braun Strowman's big ass was still there. Like, what are you?
And I think the only one that I couldn't argue is Roman Reigns is a more imposing champion. I'm like, all right, yeah, Roman Reigns was a nose tackle at Georgia Tech. CM Punk was a backyard wrestler in Missouri. You got a point there.
It's a weird thing because it almost feels like that, like somebody had an axe to grind.
Yeah, it seems like someone's big ol' on their knees for the Roman D.
That or coupled with like they tried to get a hold of Punk for some interviews or something, and he just didn't play ball. Because it's like it almost made more sense if you was gonna compare, like do a comparison between Hangman, but Hangman, doesn't factor into the equation. Obviously, Punk's gonna get more clicks because it's Punk. But like you said, it's been 18 hours, if that. Like, come on, like how long you been waiting to pull this?
Yeah, and it was like Marcus. I read this on Monday morning, so clearly it was in someone's chamber, ready to go.
One's a far more physically imposing champion. One's not. One has cousins. One's doesn't. One has a fat Jewish man backing him. The other one doesn't.
One of them was that Roman Reigns is a more sympathetic one. Was a more sympathetic champion because of his battle with leukemia. And I'm like, all right, you're not wrong that he's sympathetic. But one, as a champion, he's not. That's the whole point. Two, CM Punk survived a life of abuse by addicts. How is that not something to be endearing by? How is that not something to root for? Like, he overcame a family of addiction. Married the hottest chick I've seen in wrestling since Pamela Paulshock on her goddamn double E's. And I'm telling you, if you don't think CM Punk's story is sympathetic, then you're just not paying attention. It's fine to have a preference, but it's like you can look at a husky and look at a golden retriever and be like, well, I prefer the husky. But you'd be a fucking schmuck-a-doodle-doo if you think that they're not both adorable. So I'm sitting here just going, this is the dumbest, most biased, most conniving, cunt-filled article I've ever seen. And Marcus, the fifth point was, or 6 point, whatever the fuck it was that Roman Reigns is Paul Heyman. And because Roman has Paul Heyman, that makes his title reign better. And I'm sitting there going, listen, y'all want to jerk each other off about how good Paul Heyman is as a talker. You can go do that. But that dude hasn't said anything interesting in nearly a decade. It's been the same shit, different day. Paul Heyman's best segments are when Brock Lesnar is enjoying himself. When he had the briefcase doing the boombox and he's doing the strut and the little dance number, that was great. Had nothing to do with Paul Heyman. When Brock showed up looking like a lumberjack out of like a Norwegian goddamn Nordic god, out of the goddamn God of War series, just strolling down with his flannel and his beard and his weird haircut, just smiling like that.
That's the perfect compliment. He's to a point now where having Heyman with him holds him back.
To be fair, Heyman's been holding him back since 2004. Lesnar is a deceptively good promo. And this isn't recency bias. I've thought about this since 2003. You can tell he's not always the most comfortable just doing a promo, but when you get him shit talking, that's when he shines. You're not fighting your demons, Eddie. You're fighting me. Like, oh my God. More, please. Yes.
Yeah, now you couple that with the fact that he's having fun with all of it, even though he still gets that because he's not a person that really likes to be in crowds. I'm 100% can relate to that. But when he's having fun, he's already imposing, so he don't even
Mm-hmm.
need to try with that. But he's having fun, and he wants to talk. It's come on now.
Here's the thing. Wrestling is very much subjective until it's not. We talked about this before, like when we talk about like Britt Baker and Adam Cole, why do I want to call him Rilo?
Rilo.
Well, what is that big muscle bound steroid jockey called?
Oh, you're talking
Wardlow.
about Wardlow. There it is.
There it is. They're not athletic. I mean, like they're big or not in Adam Cole's case, but they're not overly athletic. Like they don't really shine in athleticism. Like you cannot have Ray Phoenix and the Young Bucks, and what's the young gentleman's name? Like him and his brother. I think they're biracial, but they keep getting hurt.
Um,
What is it? What is their name? The one's going to be challenging Scorpio Sky for the TNT title. Can't remember his name. He's crazy athletic though. Private Party, at least one of them.
yeah.
Is super athletic.
The private party. What's the guy's name?
It's something very like generic, like Craig Stevens.
Craig Stevens. You're not wrong about that. Isaiah Cassie or Mark Quinn, one of them.
Mark Quinn, I think, is the more athletic one, but he's not the one I'm thinking of. They're brothers, I think, and they have little tiny red afros. I can see his face. It's like Mark or Andy or Jason. Chitwali. Something generic. Damn, I'm going to have to look this up now. Scorpio Sky's next challenger.
Why do we type in the same thing?
Ha! Let's see. Wrestle Talk.
Click on this.
Nothing. Santa Clara. Dante Martin.
Yeah, that TNT title does look better in that color. Yeah.
It really does. It's still a trashy looking title, but purple and gold ain't bad. So yeah, Dante Martin, super athletic. Look at Britt Baker. Look at Wardlow. They're gonna Sid Vicious themselves if they come off the middle rope. Come on. So like when we talk about Roman Reigns and CM Punk, it's like, yeah, all right, you want to go with the physical differences, that's fine, but also this is a subjective form of entertainment, and I have to ask this sincerely: how many match of the years have Roman Reigns ever had? Because like I got 0, and I've seen a lot of his matches, and I can count far more for CM Punk in his history than Roman Reigns has in any fucking year combined with Punk. It's like Punk has had in Ring of Honor maybe 5 or 6. He had, I don't want to say a classic with Johnny Morrison on ECW, but it was pretty near classic considering all the shit and turmoil they've been going through, because that was like 7 weeks, 8 weeks removed from the Benoit tragedy. Morrison just got a new gimmick, and they had not been clicking in their previous 2 matches, and they pulled out that gem.
Yeah, I remember that because I was about to say that was like their third meeting because the first 2 matches, like, they had to build to having chemistry. So
yeah. So, like, you also have, like, the matches with Daniel Bryan in WWE. Those were great. CM Punk and John Cena was amazing. There's a lot of really great fucking matches that CM Punk's been in. And it's just like, I can't say the same about Roman. It's not that Roman can have great matches. It's that he can't have great matches because I've never seen him in one. That doesn't... But, see, that's the thing. Like, I don't need to, like, harp on that because, like... Again, I go to the Danhausen bandwagon. Danhausen has never had a great match that I've ever seen him in. But I love Danhausen. It's like you don't need to be the greatest pro wrestler to be popular and likable and top guy material. You just got to have that it factor, and Roman has it. But let's not pretend that Roman and Punk are the same talents because Punk's a better talker. Punk's a better worker. Punk is a bigger name. And Punk is starring in things in entertainment without the WWE machine. Like, he was in a very well-received horror film 2 years ago, or like a year and a half ago. It was very well-received. I'm never going to hear Roman Reigns, getting top praise for his acting chops. I mean, also because he doesn't have any, but I digress. So, like who you like, by all means. Please don't ever think that I'm telling you not to. Unless it's Matt Riddle. Don't like him. Or Randy Orton. Don't like him either. Or Ronda Rousey. She's terrible, too. Man, I'm sorry. You cannot tell me that a bunch of little kids weren't murdered and then be like, but it's just me asking questions. No, Rhonda, you said Sandy Hook didn't happen. You are a bad person, and I hope you get stomped on by an elephant, you goddamn cunt.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I did think to myself, like, I wonder what she got to say about this one. Then I was like,
Do you
she's
want to know?
probably a bit of a change of heart now because she's holding one constantly.
Yeah,
Maybe.
see, that's the thing. I've seen some moms. I've seen some moms where they go, listen, if it's got to be mine to protect my rights, that's okay by me. And I'm like, woo, 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 woo.
Are you serious?
Yeah, some of these people are real dead on into not knowing what the Second Amendment says. Apparently the words well-regulated don't come up often. Yeah, some people are fucking crazy. So the other crazy thing is CM Punk addressed rumors that he's not well-liked in the AEW locker room. So that's funny. And he had a great comment. So Nick Hausman of Wrestling Inc. asked Punk if he had truly blended in with the rest of the roster, or if he feels like there's more of or if he's more like an outsider. And Punk says, I've grown so wise in my old age. I'll do my best to be as diplomatic as possible. If there are people backstage that don't like me, it's a minority. If anybody says that nobody wants me here or nobody likes me, I'd like to say that nobodies don't like me and nobodies don't want me here. Somebody on Twitter kind of pointed out, like Adam Page, Kingston, and like somebody else didn't like Punk, so that means AEW didn't like Punk, and Punk's very toxic. And it's like, but here's the thing. Punk historically has always rubbed people the wrong way sometimes. That's fine. Eddie Kingston, as popular as he is not well liked within wrestling outside of, some of the boys and girls. He's very hard to get along with. Adam Page comes from a group of people who are not well liked outside of their own company. So, like, I don't want to hear this, like, well, Kingston doesn't like him. What the fuck does that matter? Kingston doesn't like 90% of the people he makes. He doesn't like your favorite wrestler. I guarantee you that. And another one said that, like, well, CM Punk got mad because The Rock came in and took the WrestleMania spot at 45, and here he is at 43 winning the AEW title. And I'm like, that's not why he was mad. CM Punk was mad that Rock came in at 45, wrestling twice a year, taking his spot at WrestleMania. CM Punk is a full-time active participant on the AEW roster. It's not the same thing. It's not even close to being the fucking same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, too, I don't think a lot of people are mad because that's easy for the perspective for the fans to take because it goes with their narrative. They don't understand. A lot of people tend to be thankful for The Rock when he come back because he moves asses and seats. Bigger attendance means, tend to be bigger paydays for the performer. And he gets a lot of people paid like big checks. But it also has to come from a perspective when names like that come in, creative will throw everything to the wayside that's being built almost for the most of the year to WrestleMania to shuffle everything around said guy, which is the trade-off that a lot of times, you end up taking. But I think a lot of times people have to argue for their spot because it's like, okay, I get it. He's coming in. He moves. He has a different type of momentum in terms of asses and seats. But I'm the champion. It's a different thing. A lot of his frustration came because when he was champion, he almost played more of a fiddle than he was if he wasn't champion.
Yeah, he was definitely rocking that Steamboat WrestleMania 3 energy. To Rock's Hogan WrestleMania 3 energy.
Yeah, I remember he said, like, I was the goddamn champion. Triple H came out of retirement, beat me, and then went back into retirement. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I was the champion at the time, and I had to hackle or had to have a conversation about being put on the cover of the damn video game.
It wasn't even like he was the champion. The WWE didn't want him on the video game. It was the developers. THQ or was it 2K wanted him on the cover.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like, it's a vastly different thing. Like The Rock, I like The Rock. No shame. Love The Rock. But yeah, I get CM Punk being mad at a part timer taking his spot. CM Punk's not a part timer at all. He's either been wrestling or been on every single episode of Dynamite since his debut last September. I fail to see the comparisons. When asked, however, if Punk was overwhelmed with, excuse me, well, when asked, Punk was overcome with his emotions after his win on Sunday. Punk emphasized that he earned the AEW title with his blood, sweat, and tears, saying deserve has got nothing to fucking do with it. Sorry, I misspoke. Deserve has nothing to do with it. I fucking earned this. And I agree with that. You know, he's definitely shown that he still has it. And I think the only reason people are pissy about it is because of this tribalism. Like, Cody's still as good as a wrestler in WWE as he was in AEW. Like, you can't argue that. You can argue that Cody Wyatt is welcome to AEW. I think that's fair. But I think the people who are pretending that Cody is this great grand poobah, this returning champion, you know, that bucked to AEW and that means WWE is so much better, they're really not paying attention. And I feel like people who do that, who flip-flop when somebody leaves to join their side, I feel like they just don't have any credibility. We've talked about this before, especially with the Impact. How guys like Matt Cardona, John Morrison, and a litany of other guys, I don't like. It's nothing personal. I don't have any personal animosity. It's just I don't like them. But if they help the product get ratings, I'm for it. Yeah. But most people are not mature enough to identify that's the reason why they're okay with it. And they think admitting that somehow makes them less of a fan or less of a real fan. But no, like Cody's going to have his fan base. But he's not better in WWE than he was in AEW. He's as good or as bad in WWE as he was in AEW. So you can take that for what it's worth. When it comes to CM Punk, he's still as good as he was in WWE. And part of that is because, like I said before, he's not the most athletic guy.
Yeah.
So when he takes a step back in the ring, it's not as noticeable. When Ricochet or Will Ospreay get to 43, 44, they're going to be vastly different than they were at 28. Look at Rey Mysterio.
I mean, look, we fans, we talk about the guy all the time, both in a serious and joking context. But you know, hey, look at AJ Styles. Look what he was doing. You know, like I said, my good friend at the time, growing up, middle school, was like, man, you got to watch TNA. It's this AJ Styles guy. And in my mind, at the time, I'm a WWE head. I'm like, there's no possible way that there's anybody even remotely as talented as what I'm already watching. And then that quickly got snuffed out. But we've seen him make that transition. He's just been smoother at doing it by just limiting what he does in special spots and whatnot. But obviously, he's not doing a Fosbury flop every match and then whatnot and doing a bunch of springboards, even though his finish is springboard predicated. I just think some people, you see an abrupt shift because something got, you know, an Achilles or back or something like that. And other people are smoother like AJ Styles. They transition into a more grounded, more thinking man's chess game type of style.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, like we've got somebody like Ricochet and Will Ospreay who are very predicated on always being off their feet most of the match. You're gonna notice it. Like when you see Ricochet pulling off more than 2 or 3 submissions in a match, it's gonna be a thing.
So, furthering the conversation about CM Punk, Eric Bischoff called him the biggest financial flop in the history of wrestling. And Bischoff should know because he has absolutely zero access to AEW's financial figures. So clearly he knows what he's talking about. And he even walked back the comments. Like, Bischoff knew he fucked up so hard, even he walked them back. So that should tell you something. But when here's what he said. Bischoff has called Punk the biggest financial flop in the history of wrestling, just one of several critiques he had about the former WWE superstar. But Khan, in a passionate animated rant during the AWW Double or Nothing press conference, media scrum, pointed out that nobody has made a bigger plus delta financial difference in the history of my company. Khan also claimed that Punk was the person responsible for winning the Friday Night War, referring to the 30 minutes television on October 15, 2021, in which an extended episode of SmackDown was directly aired against AEW Rampage. No one person has ever made a more positive impact. We just did a record pay-per-view buy. Every pay-per-view he's done a 4 pay-per-view cycle now. Every one of them was the record. He did the First Dance. He's done the record Double or Nothing. He did the record at All Out on his debut. He was a part of a record full year with a great match with Eddie Kingston. Then he showed up and did the biggest program in terms of everything, TV, box office, ever with MJF. He's the biggest part of the financial success of the history of my company. Punk had previously taken to social media to respond to Bischoff's comments, leading to them as bad faith, bad take, carny dipshits. Fair. And now he has stated that people like that just need to die in the dark. I didn't have a Twitter war with anybody. I never mentioned him by name, Punk said. I don't need to speak their names and stuff like that. I'm focused on what we're doing and the positives we bring to the world. Listen, Eric Bischoff's an idiot. Marcus, do you remember the time he did a 15-minute cold open on Impact where he was playing a guitar? Sorry, where he was fake playing a guitar? Remember that episode?
Yeah, it's not good. And just like that article with the Reigns Punk stuff, it came off like you had an extra grind. You salty about something, or you just, in a lot of situations that he's done before, he tries to come off like he knows more than he has actual access to know, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you even know about it? Like, you have no idea how they've shifted. And it's always interesting to me when he makes comments like that, because he's made it very clear that he wants to keep himself in a position where he can vacillate between whatever company benefits him at the time, oscillate between whatever company oscillates him at the time. So if he's, because he's been on multiple segments on AEW, we know he has no problem going back to WWE, and I wouldn't be surprised him popping from Impact if it benefits him at the time. So when he makes comments like this, it's like, dude, you've kind of shit the bed in several places across this industry, and you don't necessarily have the best reputation in certain areas, despite however you try to rehab your image. So stuff like that just comes out like you're trying to take a pop shot at a guy that's getting success and adoration that you wish you still had in some capacity.
Staying relevant is Bischoff's key goal. And there's a part of me that likes Eric Bischoff still. I liked him in WCW. I was happy when he joined Impact, and then I wasn't.
Yeah, he's had moments, man, but it's like, yo, man.
So sometimes he just needs to shut the fuck up, because no one believes him, and no one should, because what does he know? And I don't mean that derogatorily, but I mean, honestly, when it comes to the financial state of AEW, what does he know? He doesn't know anything. It's like, fuck off.
And to your point about the Punk situation with the I guess his rep with the roster, like, and I was fun. It's funny because I was watching an interview with Naomi, and I think she was asked about like camaraderie with the women, because obviously we saw the both public fallout between Charlotte and Becky, and Rick got into that, and that was weird because they used to be the best of friends, but life happens as it does, and obviously maybe one day they'll get back to meeting in the middle, but they clearly had a falling out, and Naomi talked about like this sometimes that happens, but collectively as a unit we tend to have each other's backs. We bicker and whatnot like family and have our differences, but when it comes to going out there and entertaining and having each other's back in the ring, that's where we always gonna have solidarity. I say all that to say, when it comes to those people who like and don't like, it might be half the roster that don't like Punk, but we may never know it.
Yeah.
Because he serves a huge part in the success of that company. When you heard the pop that he got when he came back, you can't fake that.
Nope.
You can't pipe that kind of emotion and roar into a show. You can't fake grown ass men crying, boo-hooing that when this man came out. So, I think even with the curtain pulled back, as much as we've seen it pulled back to the point where damn near not even the curtain back there anymore, there's still a form of solidarity with a lot of these companies oftentimes not good solidarity because a lot of times, and I think the speaking out movement has helped, people not be able to protect as many scum as they have in the past. But with situations like that, it's like, look, a lot of people may feel like he's coming in and knocking them further down the roster in a company that already does not necessarily know what to do with a lot of people on his roster. But how can they fault it when he's doing business for them? He may be very well keeping a lot of people on that roster longer than they would have because of the money he's moving.
So let's switch gears and talk about MJF. By now, the story has been talked to death. There is a meeting in place in Los Angeles, apparently, between him and Tony Khan. The contract for MJF doesn't end until January 1st of 2024, so he's still under contract for about 18 months. And if I'm Tony Khan, if I can't make this douchebag work the rest of his contract as is, with a bump in pay coming at the end of it, with an extension, I'm telling him to go home. I'll tank his fucking stock. I'll destroy his negotiating ability and his ability to make more money with the WWE. Because I'll just make a public declaration that when his contract expires, I'm going to offer him $12,000 a year for the next 5 years. And then the WWE is going to have no incentive to do anything but top it by going, I'll give you $12,000 and $1. Just destroy his fucking negotiating ability. Why would I do that? Because he's unprofessional as fuck. The dude walked out of a fan convention. Like, we mentioned this before. Like, if you're doing a Hell in a Cell spot like Mick Foley, and you're like, I'm not taking that bump unless I'm getting an extra $25,000. Just, I'm not. That's too fucking dangerous. And they don't want to pay you, and you walk out, that's fair. I think that's fair, because, like, that's fucked. Right? I hope Mick Foley got a goddamn payday out of that. But if you're walking out of a fan convention where the hardest thing you have to do is pretend you don't hate people who basically are affording you the lifestyle you want, then yeah, I'm going to destroy you. Call me vindictive. I don't give a shit. I might be, but it's justified. So I'm not really on the MJF bandwagon. Not that I ever was. He's a good talker. Not great. Good. Fucking average in the ring. It's not exactly like he's someone that can't. It's not like you can't get the same thing out of somebody else. It's like looking at prime AJ Styles. There's no one better. Now you're looking at AJ Styles at 46. It's like, yeah, there's a lot better. That's how I feel about MJF. There's a lot better. Like I don't know why AEW feels they need him, because I think he's fallen into that Cody Rhodes realm where they don't really need him. I don't think MJF is the guy that people think he is, and I think he's going to end up going the way of Adam Page, where the minute they put him in the spotlight, the shine's really going to come off. Just a personal opinion. So his contract's up on January 1st, 2024. He's meeting with Tony Khan in LA, allegedly. Marcus, do you think it's possible that we can come to a resolution of this goddamn stupid-ass situation?
Always, the possibility is always there. Always, the deal to be made in a way. And I don't begrudge anybody for seeing their worth and conducting business, etc. But there is a point to where you could legitimately start getting in your own way. And I think, this may be one of those times for this kid. I'm 100% with you and your feelings on him. I think when the company first started, I think he stood out because of how much he commits to that douchebag character. Like, again, in a time where so much of the curtain is pulled back and so many of these guys that we seeing in the ring one day trying to kill each other, or on Instagram doing a TikTok the next day. It's kind of that believability a lot of times gets eroded, whereas he stuck to it so much that he legitimately stood out to the point where he literally had fans, legitimately trying to get at him physically, so, he stood out in that way. But now, but it didn't start last week. And, so many names have been added to the roster, far more that people like more, and he doesn't necessarily have that same, I guess you would say, je ne sais quoi that he had. And like you said, he's not show-stopping in the ring. You're not going back and watching highlights of his matches. And I think ultimately, man, it's just he just comes off like a hole now. And you put him up against somebody like Punk, he's gonna drown because the likability is gonna be far more, the Punk side. And I think when it's a situation like this we mentioned before, when you're talking about, I just think it's the case where he's really smelling himself, and he really does think he's the bee's knees, and he thinks if he uses WWE as leverage, he can kind of get over on Khan. But it's like, and I think you mentioned this about Page. I put Page over him at this point. I'm not a Page guy either, but I take Page over him. Um,
I take
and
Wardlow over all three of them. Well, both of them, I should say.
and yeah, I think he used WWE as leverage. But if he genuinely thinks the grass is greener, he clearly needs to watch some more home improvement, if you will. So, I think it's a tactic. But I'm like, look, man, they got rid of, he parted ways with Cody. I think, Khan's fully aware that, it's a lot of guys on this roster that he certainly wanted to hold on to when this company was very much getting off the ground, that he couldn't afford to let go of. That I don't think he's in that mindset with these guys anymore, because it's still however many talent that the WWE has dumped that are probably just chomping at the bit to come to the company. He's not pressed to keep somebody like an MJF if you're gonna become more trouble than you're worth. If the juice ain't worth the squeeze, what's the point of man drinking?
So let's finish up with two quick stories. One, Daniel Bryan reiterates why he joined AEW, and it's basically because time management. He's not going to be on the road as often. He talked with who's it? Justin Barrasso about this with Sports Illustrated, and he basically said that he said, "quote It's interesting. I've always felt a certain level of guilt in wrestling. I also love this thing so much. We actually had a really good conversation about this a couple weeks ago in the locker room. Yes, wrestling does help people, but I still do it for selfish reasons. The Texas shooting is horrible. It always makes me go, what am I doing right now? I should be home with my kids. This can be hard to explain. I read this great book, 4,000 Weeks, and I was just telling my friend about it. The book says it's about time management, but it's actually a book about philosophy. The average lifespan is only 4,000 weeks, which is 76 years, if you're curious. If you look at where I'm at now, I'm 2,000 weeks in, and I've got 2,000 weeks left. With all the craziness in the world, do I want to spend the rest of those weeks entertaining people, or do I want to spend those time with my family? That's actually one of the reasons why I chose AEW. It allows me the ability to have a little more freedom with my wrestling and wrestle different people with different styles, but it's also about more time for my family. I was thinking about this about 2 days ago or so, maybe even just last night, that AEW doesn't do house shows, at least not regularly.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, is that going to change one day? And my thought was it would be interesting if they did house shows every weekend, but instead of just doing house shows, they did a Rampage taping on the last back half of the house show. And then they did AEW Dark taping at the house show. And then they did AEW Dark Elevation at the house show. Like, if they did those three shows in conjunction with a house show, did more touring, I think they could do a lot more business. Because I'm always about, like, finding ways to optimize things in life. And the only downfall about that is you're spending more money to tape things, and it may not be conducive financially because, like, they shoot all their stuff at the same arena, I believe.
Yeah.
So, like, every Wednesday they film Dynamite, then Rampage, then the Darks. That sounded racist. Marcus, they filmed the Darks. So, like, that saves on a lot of time. It's what Impact does. But Impact does it across a month. AEW does it for the entire week. So I don't know if Tony Khan wants to do that, because making a profit is definitely paramount, but that's a thought process. But, the schedule is obviously conducive. A lot of guys are able to stick around, and, we've seen that before. So I don't really have any comment about that. Just thought it was an interesting philosophy from him.
It sounds, it's perfectly. And I like the fact that, he takes that much time to really, not only think about that time and relatively when it comes to life in general, going through the human experience, but he also reads up on it, because sometimes you just need to, get out of your own and get somebody else's perspective, and that kind of makes all the sense of the world when you do the math that he stated. And Punk's not Punk. Brian's always kind of, come off like a less is more guy, like he's a minimalist in life in general. He doesn't need a lot, but what he has, he values. Um, so I mean, look, man, he's a father. What, of two now? Two young girls, or what have you? But I definitely know he's a father of two. Lovely wife, that whole deal. And I know it had a huge impact on him some years back when he lost his dad. Um, and obviously he thought he had the one thing that he always loved taken away from him. Now he got it back. So I can imagine the tug and pull, but I think AEW is a perfect place because it allows him that right amount of time to do some real creative stuff. And him being with this Blackpool Fight Club, it's the perfect thing that represents who he really is as a wrestler. This is the best version of him that we've gotten, and he's not bogged down by the chicanery that comes with all the WWE, funhouse games of he doesn't have to, cipher through all that just to get to a straight up and down technical match. He can do that, as a legitimate character on the show that everybody loves, the American Dragon. So, hopefully a lot of the other guys kind of come to that conclusion. But you're right. I think that's something that a lot of people don't really bring up is that they don't do house shows.
Mhm.
Which is, would be, like you said, an interesting extension if that's something they look to in the future. But we talked about this before. I mean, the guys, Filthy Rich and Tony Khan, but yeah, I mean, there is a limit, to certain stuff. And sometimes you can be bleeding money and not necessarily be, getting those profits back. As long-time Impact fans, we know all about being cash flow negative and positive. So, yeah, man. I mean, that makes perfect sense. But I wonder who else is on that same ship as Brian. I would imagine Moxley is as well.
Moxley,
That
probably CM
really works
Punk,
for him. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Britt Baker. Even though like I don't find her entertaining as well at all, she is a practicing dentist,
Yeah.
which is I guess hard to be. I have
Yeah,
no
I mean,
respect for dentists.
and I think when they first started, she was still finishing school. So
I believe she's actively taking clients actually, or patients, I should say.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
she's actively working on teeth. Tooths, the teethists. Marcus, there's a diminutive, what is he, Kazakhstani internet celebrity by the name of Hezbollah. Have you ever seen this dude?
No.
Habib Nurmagomedov basically made him famous. They're from Russia. He's 3'8" or 4 foot tall, maybe not even that tall, but he's a madman. He fights full grown MMA guys. He goes zipping around the streets of Russia in like a four wheeler, not a four wheeler, but like a go kart, but like a souped up dumb 100-mile-an-hour go kart. He shoots off all sorts of like AR-15s and like rocket launchers and shit. He's just a madman. He looks like he's 4, but he's like in his mid-20s, I think. And he just took a photo apparently with Snoop Dogg. It may not be a real photo, but I saw it on Twitter, and I'm thinking to myself, even if it's not a real photo, I now need to see this little Russian madman and Snoop Dogg doing a collab.
Just all that description alone, without knowing anything else, I'm like, so he's a come to life Smash Brothers character.
Basically. He is basically a come to life Smash Brothers character. Jesus. All right, last story, real quick. Rhino and Madison Rayne have moved on in Impact to working as producers. Their in-ring time may be coming to an end. We don't know. We'll see. Marcus, I don't really have anything else to say about this. I just thought it was an interesting point of note. Madison left the company last year, then came quickly back, so I don't know what that was about. And Rhino has kind of been a legend for the promotion, dating back to his stint in the first time around where he was around for, I think, 6 years. Won the world title, and I think he's had 2 reigns with the tag title since. Or just one? I think it's just one. So, he's kind of made a little name for himself. I like this. I like seeing guys that have been loyal to the company and being given second chances, getting a chance to really, flex what they can do.
No, man, I'm right there with you, man. I always appreciate it's funny this long-term dating history that Madison has with the company. Morano, yeah, man, I think that's a good spot for him. I always like when, former knockouts or what have you. Because obviously Gail Kim's there, but she can't do everything. She shouldn't have to. even if she can, some help with the ladies, particularly from somebody who's not only, on the roster, but actively, wrestling with these women and involved in storylines. So that helps. Morano, like you said, he's not necessarily where he was years ago, but who is in a lot of ways. Um, and he's another guy that I would imagine has a great mind for the business because he's always come off, like a relatively sensible guy for no other reason. The fact that he's kind of kept a he's kind of kept himself in good straits in terms of having stuff outside of wrestling when he wasn't doing it consistently in terms of business and jobs and whatnot. So, he seems like somebody that's real smart in that regard. So they definitely got the right people in place. How long actually have they been removed from having guys like Jimmy Jacobs and other guys?
I think Jimmy Jacobs is still there, but he's the head of creative. I think
Oh, okay.
he's still there. I think Archibald Peck is still there. So this is more of a producer role, and I don't know how many producers they want or have.
Yeah.
Because I know Tommy Dreamer returned, so I don't know if he's looking on his way out. D'Lo Brown recently came back to television, or is going to. I don't know if that episode aired yet. And he's been a backstage producer. So you never know who's cycling in and out. Maybe because of the deeper roster, they're looking at more guys to bring on. Maybe they're looking at promoting Gail Kim from within the promotion to within the company, because Impact is just part of Anthem. And they may be looking at Gail Kim for a higher position, so that it would make sense to have Madison Rayne more involved. If they're looking at a replacement for Gail Kim, if they're planning on promoting her, maybe they're looking at touring, maybe they're looking at launching their own developmental. There's a lot of reasons why they could be bringing in more guys. So, we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah. Has there any since he left? Has anybody officially took the spot that Callis had, or now is it just the more doing everything?
I think it's the more doing everything, but maybe that's another thing where Gail Kim or Jimmy Jacobs might be being poised to replace Callis. Because I got to imagine that there's some overwhelming amount of work to do when you're in that position, and having someone who can take it off, and do some of it is definitely
because
definitely a help.
It's weird because it's felt like that for the longest time, and like TNA Impact's history, where the guy that's been on screen as an authority figure has also been the businessman behind the screens as well. I feel like, I feel like Cornette was in that position, and some other guys, like Hogan and stuff like that. So it's weird, but hopefully not. That's he's not the guy getting stretched too thin, because Cal is kind of just like he slick moved up out of there, and I don't know what he's doing now, but I'm like he's not on. They don't really need him if Omega's not there. So I don't even know if when Omega comes back he's gonna need him with him. So who knows?
We'll see. That takes us to the end of the show. We had another long one. What was it? Nearly an hour and a half. So check us out at the website, realnerdcorp.com. REALNERDCORP.com. We're on Instagram at NERDCORP. Nope, we're on Twitter at NERDCORP. I'm saying words that don't make sense in my head. Marcus can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's the kid.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, over on Twitter at TRUEPENNYSHOW. I'm on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, CHDNERDCORP, and on the Instagram at ChadWhatWhat. Be sure to find us on twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground and the YouTube at The Wrestling Underground, I think. So follow us there, or just find us on the website. It's an easier link. We're done. We'll see you next Monday for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance as I get words to come out of my mouth properly. For Marcus Green, I'm Chad Porto. We're done. Thank you. Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.